Warning: Geeking Toyetic is a show aimed at the adult collector, and as such features adult language and humor that is not appropriate for younger audiences. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome everybody to a new episode of Geeking Toyetic. I'm your host Larry Roberts, and on this show we talk about toys. Everything toys, whether it's vintage toys that are loose or still mint in box, new toys that you can find on the shelves today, collectible toys, rack toys, all kinds of toys. And speaking of that, I have something very special in mind for this episode. I'm going to unbox a couple of new toy-related books and magazines. I love reading about toys as much as I love talking about it and shopping for them. And you may have seen in the past that I have talked about the awesome magazine known as Toy Ventures. Brian Heiler, who many of you know from Plaid Stallions.com or from Mego Museum, amongst many other things that he's been involved with. He is pretty much an aficionado on toys, especially weird old toys from the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, and he likes to feature them as often and frequently as he can. And you know, being on the internet is all good and fine and everything, but it's not the same as having an actual print magazine. And so starting in 2020, he put out this amazing magazine called Toy Ventures. Now, I have reviewed almost every issue of this. I've been really pleased with every new issue of Toy Ventures that's come out. I feel like it's just gotten better and better, and I'm really happy to announce that I just got in the mail a package that has issue number 5 of Toy Ventures, and I am going to open it up here and do a quick review. And after that, I'm going to open another package of something that I'm very excited about, but more on that in a few minutes. In the meantime, let's get to opening. I want to see this magazine. Alright, so here we go. I have not opened this package yet. I've been anxiously waiting to do it until I could do it with all of you here together with me now. So here we go. So, yep, in this issue, the fall 2021 issue, we have a feature on Mego Planet of the Apes. Now, anybody that knows my channel knows that I'm a big fan of Mego toys, and I love Planet of the Apes, and I can't wait to see this. It also has features in here on Electroman and Zog, as well as the Ballad of Baby Frankenstein, the Avengers Emma Peel, and man, this is really cool. There's an article in here about talking toys with artist Alex Ross. So for those that don't know, the point of Toy Ventures magazine is to not only do features on really popular toy lines of its day, such as the Mego Planet of the Apes, but also to feature less discussed and in many cases totally forgotten toy lines. I mean, how many people remember Electroman and Zog? I mean, that's pretty cool. I remember Electroman because that was such an odd toy, but that is why it's in here. And I believe Electroman was made by Ideal Toys, and the whole point of his line was that he had the power to project light. He had light coming out of his head, Zog had light coming out of his head, and if I recall correctly, you could use little pistol things to actually trigger the light. It reminds me a little bit of the old Mego phaser game, where it was basically a primitive version of laser tag. And I mean, at the time back in the 70s, this was like super advanced. And I mean, gosh, just look how goofy these toys are, but wonderfully goofy. I love it. And then here you go right now, the famous Electro Woman doll. I gotta be honest with you guys, I never knew about Electro Woman. I know Electro Woman and Dyna Girl, but that's a whole other bag of stuff to deal with, and that was a great show. But no, this is something else entirely, and wow, I'm definitely going to have to read into that, because see, that's what's great about this magazine is even as many years as I've been collecting toys, and I was around in the 1970s buying toys, and I never knew about that stuff. You get to the main feature, you know, it features so much cool old paraphernalia about the Mego Apes, pictures of Marty Abrams, Mego's head and champion. Really cool old ads from local sales ads and catalogs. Yeah, see, love this kind of stuff. If you're into this kind of stuff, this is what Brian features in these magazines. And wow, man, it's so extensive. There's so many cool pictures. Prototypes of Zira and Cornelius. I mean, again, a lot of this is just stuff that you don't really see anywhere else. I mean, some of this is probably floating around, you know, out there on the internet, but to have it all gathered here in one publication is just really awesome. Man, so many of these things, I've never seen these things before. I love Frankenstein, but you know, I didn't know some of this stuff existed, folks. So again, if you're into this kind of stuff, even if you don't collect all of these things, because some of this stuff is really rare and it can be really tough to find, and some of it, even though a lot of this stuff was, you know, dime store toys, and they're really expensive now. So a lot of this stuff I'm never going to have come through my own two hands, but it's amazing to be able to read about the whole history of it. He's got so many contributors in here. You know, Brian has all kinds of people, Corey Lachat's in here, David Lockwood. Brian does the article, of course, about Planet of the Apes, because anybody who knows him, he is Mr. Apes guy. Tyler Ham, Jason Lenzi, of course, Biff Bang Pow and Plaid Stallions. Love Jason. Murphy Cook, all sorts of other contributors, and you know, people that contributed their time and pieces of their collection to make this happen. I mean, oh, you got the whole article with Alex Ross. Alex Ross is an incredibly cool guy and an amazing artist, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading what he has to say about his own collection and his toy memories. This is a great magazine. If you're interested in just reading about toys, maybe learning about stuff that you didn't even know about, or stuff that had been rumored but there's not a lot of information out there, this is the magazine to read. Toy Ventures number 5, fall 2021 issue. I will put all of the information, links and everything. It'll be on the screen and it'll be in the description below if you want to click on something. I'm sure they would much appreciate your support. It's a great, great magazine, and you know what? Every new issue that comes out, I'm going to probably talk about it on here, because Toy Ventures, in all honesty, has been one of those things that has really kept my interest in toy collecting going, because, you know, now and then you fall into little pits of despair where you can't afford everything, or things get tough to find, or you know, maybe you've got those holy grail toys that just always seem to be out of your reach, and it's easy to get discouraged. And reading things like Toy Ventures, man, it sparks that fire in me again to want to keep pursuing this stuff. So thank you, Brian Heiler. Thank you to all the contributors that keep making Toy Ventures so awesome, and keep it up. Oh, and last but not least, before we move on to something else, I want to show you the cool bonus thing, because every time a new issue comes out from Toy Ventures, when you order it from them, they send a cool bonus. You might remember last time I got that really cool little Mad Monsters pennant thing that I think I've got back there behind me right now, hanging out with Creech. And this time, man, he just keeps up in the game. This is amazing. It is a Mr. Rock Cosmic Space Flyer. Now, for those of you that don't know what the hell Mr. Rock is, and you're going, that vaguely looks like Mr. Spock flying on some kind of weird glider, that's pretty accurate. Mr. Rock was a knockoff toy that came out right around 1976 from Lincoln International. Now, many of you might know Lincoln International because they did very famous knockoff monster toys that in many cases they were made to compete with what Mego and AHI were putting out for their monsters. And man, those Lincoln International ones, for being cheap knockoffs, they're super hard to find, especially in good condition or mint on card or in box. And in many cases, a lot of people consider it their favorite monster figures. You know, it's just really something. But not that he was so much a monster, but he was kind of considered in part of that line. Mr. Rock, if you haven't figured it out, and by looking at him, was a really goofy knockoff of Mr. Spock. Because at the time, in 1976, Mego was riding really high on the success of Star Trek Megos, and you know, Mr. Spock being the most notable character of the bunch, they came out with the not so cleverly named and very freaking obvious Mr. Rock figure. As Brian has mentioned, yes, he does look like Tony Randall from The Odd Couple dressed up as a Vulcan, and that just adds to the charm, doesn't it? But what he did here was he made a little glider. This is like the kind of thing you would have found as a rack toy in a Ben Franklin or some other, you know, whatever your little local dime store was back in the 70s. You put this thing together and it's a little flying glider. And I think that is just freaking awesome. Chris Franklin did the artwork for this from fireandwaterpodcast.com. He's also a big Mego guy. Chris is a great guy. And this is super cool. The magazine is great enough on its own. Having these little extras is just, you know, that's just icing on the cake. So good on you, Toy Ventures, for keeping, you know, adding this silly stuff in there. I'd buy the magazine even if it didn't have it, but this is just pretty charming and perfect segue for what we're going to see next. So without any further ado, let's check out my other package. So I got another package in literally like 2 days after I got the Toy Ventures magazine in, and perfectly timed, because not only is it another piece of reading material, but it is also authored by none other than Brian Heiler, and it is the second edition printing of his now well-known and highly regarded Rack Toys book. Now, I actually have the first edition of this. It's one of my favorite, if not possibly my absolute favorite toy-related book that I've ever bought. And believe me, I've got a lot of toy books. I just love this because, as I've talked about on Geeking Toyetic before, I am a big fan of rack toys. Now, for those that don't know, I'm sure most of you do, but rack toys is an indicator of cheap toys that were meant to be sold in dime stores, on little end cap racks at grocery stores, things like that. They were inexpensive impulse buy toys for parents to buy their crying, fussing, screaming little kids. And they still have rack toys. I mean, they're still around, but they don't have the same kind of charm that rack toys had back in the 1970s or the early 80s, and that is what this book covers. He did update it a little bit. I know he added a few new things in here from the original pressing. The old pressing, I'm pretty sure that sold out a long time ago, and it was just an independently done thing by Brian with years and years of love and effort and, you know, the support he could get from those of us in the toy collecting community. But what made this awesome was he was recently approached by the Nacelle Company. Now, you would know the Nacelle Company because its founder, Brian Volkweiss, and Nacelle are the ones that create shows for Netflix, such as The Toys That Made Us, The Movies That Made Us, and many other ventures. I know he does that one Kevin Hart series, all that kind of stuff. Well, Brian is a big supporter of our Brian here with the Rack Toys book, and he approached Brian Heiler and said, I want to publish a new pressing of your Rack Toys book, which was a huge win for all of us. I mean, this thing has, I don't know how many hundreds of pages, but like, I think it's got around, 150, 160 pages worth of just amazing photos. Again, so many toys that I'm sure many of you have never seen before, and you'd just be stunned to know that these things exist. I mean, oh, look, right here. This was one of my favorite rack toys of all time, this silly, bendable alien from Close Encounters. I remember seeing this on the end rack at the Jewel grocery store just 2 blocks from my house back when I was like 4 or 5 years old. I had to have it. I thought it was amazing. I mean, it's just a bendable. It probably cost all of $1, $1.50, something like that. These toys were intended to last, you know, maybe a weekend if you were lucky. Sometimes they lasted longer than that. But the funny thing is, what lasted the longest was the happy memories. Some of my fondest toy memories come not from the toys that cost my parents like $50 or something back in 1978, although I did love those toys too. But sometimes it was the rack toys that I got for $1 on a Friday afternoon from my grandfather or from my aunt or from my mom or dad or whomever. Sometimes those toys just meant the absolute world to me. And, you know, it was the only place that you would find things like, say, for example, The Martian Chronicles, that mini-series that was on television back there in the late 70s, early 80s. You know, they never made like a really proper toy line for them. They were cheap rack toys, but they were freaking awesome. And there's just tons of that in here. Glow-in-the-dark movie monsters, loads of King Kong stuff, and oh, you know, again, you guys on this channel know I love these old monsters. Loads of this. Super happy to get an updated version of this. Thank you, Brian Weiss and Nacelle Company, for taking the interest in this and making a repressing, a new publishing of this happen, because this is a book that lots and lots more people need to know about. And I'm pretty sure that this is still available. I think this only just went on sale within the last couple of weeks, so it should still be in print, but don't wait, because a lot of times these things will sell out, and this is worth every penny. I just think this is such a great book, and I think altogether, even with shipping and stuff, if you got it on like Amazon or something, it was like 20 bucks. I mean, it's not a lot nowadays for a book, especially a nice big one with color pictures, glossy, all that stuff. I cannot recommend these two publications, Rack Toys and Toy Ventures, highly enough. If you're a toy enthusiast, no matter what level of toy collector you are, whether you're just a little more casual or you're super hardcore, I don't see why you can't find a lot of enjoyment out of publications like this. And that is why I'm talking about it and showing it off here. So again, for the Rack Toys as well as Toy Ventures, I'll have all the links below for you to check out. And yeah, if you do check either or both of these out, I would love to know what you think of them. So make sure you leave comments below the video for this, or check us out at the Geeking Squad group on Facebook. It's free to join. There'll be all kinds of posts about this kind of stuff in there, as well as other stuff. I would love to hear from you what you think of these, so don't forget to comment. Well, that's all I've got for you this episode, folks. Thank you for checking out my show. I'm always so grateful for all of you that check this out, share it, like it, comment, all that kind of stuff. I've got plans for talking about some monster toys, old and new. I'm really looking forward to doing that episode. And, you know, then Christmas is right around the corner from that, so there's going to be all kinds of really cool toy stuff coming up on Geeking Toyetic. I hope you check it out. I can't wait to share all my stuff with you and see what you think about it. In the meantime, happy hunting, happy reading, and we'll see you soon.